When I collapsed at work, the doctors called my parents. They never showed. Instead, my sister tagged me in a photo online. Family day, without the drama. I didn't reply. I just stared. A few days later, still weak, still hooked up to machines, I woke up to 78 missed calls and a text from my dad. "We need you. Answer right now." I'd had this feeling for weeks. Something wasn't right. But I pushed through it, like I always did. Headaches. Dizziness. That strange pressure in my chest. I ignored it. Because slowing down? That didn't feel like an option. Not when I was helping cover my mom's loan payments. Not when my sister Sophia was texting every other day asking for just a little help. And definitely not when my dad kept acting like his missed mortgage bills were somehow my duty to handle. That's the part outsiders don't see. They look at the polished family photos and think, wow, what a happy family. They don't know what it's like to grow up as the background character in your own house. My sisters, Sophia and Lila, could crash a car, and somehow Mom would still praise them for learning something valuable. Me? I once won a statewide engineering award. Mom's only response? "Oh nice, did you thank your teacher?" I stopped expecting recognition. I just wanted, maybe a little gratitude. But even that never came. So I worked. Weekends. Extra shifts. Bills I shouldn't have been paying. Telling myself it was fine until that Monday afternoon. I was at my desk, halfway through prepping a client presentation. I stood up to grab a file from the printer. And then, nothing. Black. When I opened my eyes again, it was to beeping monitors, wires on my chest, and a nurse adjusting a drip. This wasn't dehydration. It wasn't stress. It was a cardiac event. The doctor said if I hadn't collapsed at work, if my coworkers hadn't called an ambulance immediately, I might not have made it. The hospital staff? They were incredible. Professional, kind. When no one showed up to sit at my bedside, they told me, "We already contacted your emergency contacts, your parents." So I waited. 1 day. 2 days. Nothing. On the 3rd day, I woke up, checked my phone. And there it was. Not a text. Not a voicemail. A tag. On Instagram. It was Sophia. A photo of her, Lila, and my parents smiling around a picnic table at Cedar Lake. Mom had even made her famous deviled eggs. The caption? Family day without the drama. They tagged me like I was some kind of joke. Like I wasn't lying half dead in a hospital bed while they were laughing over potato salad. I didn't respond. I just let the screen fade to black in my hand. And something inside me quietly snapped. Not loud. Not angry. Just final. I kept recovering. The doctors ran tests. I barely spoke unless I had to. Still, not a word from my family. Then, 4 days later. 74 missed calls. A text from my father. "We need you. Answer now." No apology. No "how are you?" Just orders. And without even thinking, I sat up, still weak, still tethered to wires. But I didn't call them. I called someone else. A number I hadn't dialed in months. Saved under a name I never deleted. Grandpa Ray. He picked up on the second ring, like he'd been waiting. Didn't ask how I was. Just asked, which hospital? That was it. No hesitation. Just action. Like I mattered. He showed up 40 minutes later. Same old windbreaker. Same old wristwatch. Same look on his face that said nothing surprised him anymore. He sat down and said, "So, they finally broke you too, huh?" And I just nodded. Ray stayed the entire day. Talked to my nurse. Asked real questions. Quietly paid for one of my tests the insurance had denied, never making a scene about it. Then he pulled out a tablet. We started going through my finances. What I saw stunned me. My name was on 5 loans, 3 credit cards, 2 utilities, and a car policy for a vehicle I didn't even drive. Every time my family had a rough patch, I'd stepped in. Automatically. Quietly. Because I thought that's what family meant. But they hadn't just leaned on me. They'd leaned through me. I wasn't a person to them. I was an ATM. A pressure valve. That family failure who only mattered as long as I kept fixing their problems. Grandpa Ray helped me make a list. And we started shutting them down. 1. Buy. 1. Sophia's auto transfer? Gone. She'd flown to Cancun 3 times this year. She could pay her own way. Lila's rent deposit? Cancelled. Mom's car insurance? She could call the provider herself. And that loan Sophia had conveniently stopped mentioning? Flagged. Reported. Fraud claim filed. Because I was done being their backup plan. By the time Ray left that night, my phone was still buzzing non-stop. Mom's voicemail sounded forced, like she'd just heard what happened. Lila's texts were in all caps, demanding I answer. Sophia went quiet, which in her case meant she was scheming. Then another text from Dad. This is serious. Call me. Everything is falling apart. Still no mention of my health. Just panic. Not for me. But for what they were losing. That was just the beginning. I was still in the hospital when the fallout began. At first, it was the voicemails. 12. Then 24. Eventually, too many to even check. I played one on speaker just to see if anything had changed. It was Mom. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but this isn't the way to do it. That was the tone. Not concern. Not fear. Just annoyance, like the family ATM machine had stopped working. Sophia texted next. First, no words. Just a screenshot of her checking account. Balance, $31. Then another message. What the hell is going on? Fix this. I stared at it. Felt a flash of anger. Then just let it fade. Because it wasn't new. It was just louder now. Lila tried a different angle. Her text was longer, softer. Emotional. She wrote, I don't know what's happening, but I love you. I want peace. Please don't punish me for things I didn't do. Which was almost funny. Considering the last time we spoke, she rolled her eyes when I refused to co-sign another lease. Called me difficult. Then ghosted me for 3 months. But it was Dad who finally crossed the line. He showed up at my apartment. Grandpa Ray warned me first, he'd spotted Dad's car idling outside. I was still recovering, barely strong enough to walk. But that didn't stop Dad from parking out front like it was some hostage negotiation. I didn't go out. I didn't respond. Later that day, a text came through. You're about to destroy everything we've built. I hope you understand the damage you're causing. Everything we built. The audacity in that sentence, it actually made me laugh. I read it again just to be sure I hadn't misread it. No apology. No mention of the hospital. No acknowledgement of what put me there. Just fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of losing the leverage they'd held over me for so long. Then came the post. Sophia uploaded a video. No music. No words. Just a slow pan through my parents' house, completely empty. Not just messy. Not just cluttered. Evicted empty. Front door wide open. Living room stripped bare. Even the curtains gone. The caption? They took everything. And guess who let them? I watched it once. Then I opened my finance app. Checked the mortgage. Defaulted. Again. They'd used the house equity to pay off Sophia's credit card debt. And to fund Lila's business venture. Some online candle shop. Or maybe a boutique. I don't even remember. It failed in 2 months. None of the money had gone toward the house. I had warned them once, last year. Told them if they didn't manage things better, I was done. They didn't believe me. So when I walked away, the bank moved in. Ray was there when I found the foreclosure notices. I just showed him the screen. Didn't even speak. He nodded once, made a few calls. One to his lawyer. One to an old friend in estate planning. And finally, to his accountant, someone I hadn't even known existed. That's when the truth came out. It wasn't just me they'd been draining. They had been circling Ray too. Lila suddenly inviting him to brunch. Sophia bringing him a Christmas gift for the first time in 10 years. Mom hinting during phone calls that he should start thinking about what's fair. He saw it all coming. And he prepared. Every asset, every trust, every property. He had already moved. Not to punish them. To protect it from them. And now? He shifted most of it under a new name. Mine. Not as a reward. Not even as a gift. But because, in his words, you're the only one who never asked. And that makes you the only one worthy. That night, Sophia tried to visit me at the hospital. She wasn't on the list, so security turned her away. But I saw her through the window. Pacing, phone in hand, sunglasses on even though it was dusk. 15 minutes later, she left. I thought that was the end of it. Then, an hour later. A text. If you don't fix this, I swear you'll regret it. No emojis. No hearts. Just that. And it didn't land the way she thought it would. I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel cornered. For the first time in years. I felt nothing. Because I wasn't their fixer anymore. I wasn't their son, or brother, or safety net. I was finally free. The real ambush didn't come with a text. Or a video. It came with paperwork. A week after I was discharged, an envelope arrived. Not just any envelope. Certified mail, signed for at the door. Inside was a neatly stacked pile of legal documents. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. Then the header caught my eye. Petition for guardianship. I froze. Read it again. They were trying to have me declared incapacitated. The argument? Because of my hospital stay. Because of what I'd been through. I wasn't fit to manage my own finances. They wanted control of my accounts. Control of my decisions. Control of me. Ray was sitting across the room when I dropped the papers. He didn't even look surprised. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and said, I told you they'd try this. That's why we moved everything. Sure enough. The paperwork had all the usual fingerprints. Dad's lawyer's name on the bottom. Mom's signature on the affidavit. And Sophia and Lila listed as interested parties. The very people who had pushed me into the hospital bed were now trying to use it as proof that I didn't deserve freedom. But they made one mistake. They didn't realize the timing. By the time that petition landed in my hands, everything had already been shifted. The accounts. The trusts. Even the condo. All under the new protections Ray had arranged. So when their lawyer stood before the judge, making his case, there wasn't much left to seize. I didn't even have to speak. My attorney, someone Ray had recommended, simply handed over the updated filings. It took less than 15 minutes. The judge scanned the pages, frowned, and finally said, There's nothing here to grant. Petition denied. That was it. Months of scheming. Thousands spent on legal fees. And in the end, all they earned was a public record of their attempt to strip me of my independence. The fallout was instant. Lila left the courthouse in tears, muttering about betrayal. Sophia stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. Dad refused to make eye contact with me. And Mom? She just stared. Like she couldn't comprehend that the control she'd counted on for decades was gone. That night, my phone lit up again. This time, a single message from Dad. "You'll regret this." I didn't respond. Because for once, I wasn't the one losing sleep. That was the day I realized something. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by loyalty. By choice. And mine? Was standing right beside me the whole time. Grandpa Ray. The storm really broke the day Ray called me into his study. It was late. The kind of late where the house is quiet, but you can feel something shifting. He poured himself a glass of bourbon, motioned for me to sit, and said, "It's time." On the desk was a thick folder. Not just papers. Legal documents, carefully bound, sealed with tabs. His will. The one he had just rewritten. I hesitated. Didn't even want to touch it. He noticed. Smiled. "This isn't about money," he said. "It's about protection." Then he explained. Every account. Every property. Every share of stock. Locked away. Shielded. And when the time came, it would pass directly to me. Not because I asked. Not because I wanted it. But because, in his words, "I trust you to do what's right. Not just for yourself, but for the family that actually matters." The next week, word leaked. I don't know if it was the lawyer's office or someone snooping through files. But soon enough, my phone was buzzing again. This time it wasn't texts. It was calls. Back to back. Voices I hadn't heard in weeks. Lila? Sophia? Even Mom. All suddenly desperate to talk. When I didn't pick up, they started showing up. First at my door. Then at Ray's. They brought flowers. Groceries. Smiles that felt rehearsed. Like they thought kindness could erase everything that came before. But Ray? He wasn't fooled. One evening, when Sophia tried to drop off a care package, he met her at the door. Didn't even open it all the way. Just leaned on the frame, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "You had your chance. You all did. And you wasted it." Then he closed the door. That was the breaking point. After that, the calls turned bitter again. Accusations. Threats. Even public posts about how selfish I was. But it didn't land anymore. Because now, everyone could see the truth. The house was gone. The money was gone. The mask was gone. And me? For the first time in my life, I wasn't the scapegoat. I wasn't the problem solver. I wasn't the backup plan. I was simply free. Ray passed a few months later. Peacefully. Quietly. The service was small. No stage drama. Just the people who had truly stood by him. When it ended, I stood at his grave a long time. Not thinking about the inheritance. Not about the chaos behind me. Just about him. And the one gift he gave me that mattered most. Clarity. Because the truth is, family isn't who shares your last name. Family is who shows up when the rest of the world disappears. And in the end, I finally knew who my family really was.